There is no escape.
The gateway is open, and you are all coming with me.
Event Horizon isn't really a movie about space, it's about what happens when human ambition outruns human comprehension. Set in the cold geometry of a ship designed to fold space-time, Paul W.S. Anderson's cult horror turns the language of science fiction into theology, a cathedral made of steel orbiting the edge of hell. Beneath the gore and jump scares lies something lonelier. The realization that the drive to know, to conquer, to resurrect might be less about discovery and more about denial. Weir doesn't build the Event Horizon to explore the universe, he builds it to outrun grief. And when it answers him, it speaks in the only language he'll understand, suffering. So the question becomes, what if the final frontier isn't the universe, but the unbearable weight of what we've already done? When Event Horizon began production in the mid-1990s, Paul Anderson was a young British director still writing the cult success of Mortal Kombat. Hollywood, fresh off the Alien and Hellraiser booms, wanted another stylish genre hybrid, and Anderson seemed the perfect hire. Technically minded, visually aggressive, and fascinated by bodies under duress, Paramount rushed the film to fill a release date gap left by Titanic's delays, giving him barely 10 months from greenlight to final cut. The result was a haunted house movie built from the blueprints of a blockbuster shot at England's Pinewood Studios, dressed like a gothic church floating in deep space, and starring a cast just on the edge of stardom. Lawrence Fishburne between Othello and The Matrix, anchoring the film with stoic gravity, and Sam Neill fresh off Jurassic Park, lending Weir a mix of academic warmth and secret mania. Visually, Event Horizon feels born from the collision of influences that define late 90s horror, the industrial rot of Alien, the metaphysical sadism of Hellraiser, and the cold geometric dread of Kubrick's The Shining. Production designer Joseph Bennett built the ship as a literal cathedral to pain. Long corridors like naves, rotating corridors patterned after medieval torture devices, a gravity-drive chamber shaped like an iron altar. Cinematographer Adrian Biddle bathed it all in emerald and rust, making space look diseased. Anderson wanted a movie that felt tactile, a counterpoint to the coming wave of digital sci-fi. Most effects were practical miniatures, mechanical rigs, and gallons of artificial blood. For all its chaos, the finished film's aesthetic, baroque, grimy, almost sacred, remains one of the most distinctive in 90s cinema. And then there's the myth of the lost cut. Early test audiences saw a version nearly 40 minutes longer, containing graphic visions of the crew's descent into a hell dimension, scenes of virtual violence and madness shot with prosthetics and choreography that bordered on performance art. Studio executives recoiled, ordering Anderson to trim it to a brisk 96 minutes and tone down the explicit horror. The excised footage was later misplaced, rumored to have deteriorated in a Transylvanian salt mine, feeding its legend. Whether that longer cut would have elevated the film to something transcendent or merely excessive is impossible to know. What survives is a fragment, film that gestures towards cosmic terror it can no longer show. Yet maybe that absence works in its favor. The unseen has a gravity of its own, and Event Horizon in every version still feels like a movie orbiting the edge of something vast, unfinished, and unspeakable. When Event Horizon came out, it totally flopped in theaters, and it's easy to see why. It was up against movies like Men in Black and The Fifth Element, all flashy, fun, and family-friendly, while Event Horizon was being sold as a normal space thriller, but it's not normal. It's this weird Lovecraftian hell dimension in space, a ship that feels alive, corridors that feel like cathedrals made of steel, and a sense of dread that creeps into every corner. Even the cut version, the one we actually got, still has flashes of that cosmic terror and human guilt, but trimming 40 minutes of flashbacks, gore, and thematic detail left it a little unclear, maybe even hollow in spots. Honestly, it's impossible to say if the full version would have been better or just overwhelming, but even as it is, the film works. It lets you fill in a lot yourself, which actually makes it scarier in its own way. For me, that's what sticks. I don't need everything spelled out, and I'm not watching it for gore anyway. Some of those lost scenes might have helped sharpen things, sure, but I doubt all 40 minutes were essential. Watching it cold, not knowing anything, it still got under my skin and has stuck with me ever since. Over the years, people have started looking at it differently, and I get that. The film has a style and confidence that totally holds up. The acting, the design, the sound, even the pacing, it's all pretty solid, and compared to other stuff in that hybrid sci-fi horror space, it only looks better with time. It's not the pinnacle of cinema, and it's not perfect, but in its own lane it's a must-watch. Whether you're into the themes, the sci-fi horror mix, or just love comparing it to the other films in that genre, Event Horizon really holds up. Even the cut version, stripped of the full gore and some of the explicit stuff, is still stronger than most of its contemporaries. It's creepy, stylish, unforgettable, and leaves you thinking about it long after the credits. And honestly, just imagining what that lost 40 minutes might have looked like only adds to the movie's pull. It's not flawless, but it's one of those rare films in its category that sticks with you, and that's more than enough to make it a must-watch. For the rest of the video there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it and come back. Event Horizon starts off feeling almost mundane. It's 2047, a routine mission. A missing starship, the Event Horizon, has reappeared near Neptune after vanishing 7 years earlier. The crew of the Lewis and Clark is trained, experienced, used to the dangers of space, and yet they're stepping into something completely unfamiliar. The ship's designer, Dr. Weir, explains the gravity drive almost casually, holding space for instant travel, but even in that explanation there's a hint of human ambition flirting with something beyond comprehension. When they board the ship, they find the massacre. It's clear immediately that the normal rules of reality don't apply here. The ordinary has become terrifying, and the familiar corridors of a starship become a stage for humans confronting their own guilt, fear, and mortality. Even small details, like Justin being pulled into a portal or the shockwave breaching the ship, show how quickly their everyday competence turns to helplessness in the face of something they can't control. The heart of the movie to me lies in the hallucinations. Each crew member is confronted with the personal weight they carry. Miller with his abandoned subordinate, Peters with her sick child, Weir with his dead wife. The ship doesn't just kill, they're forced to reckon with what they've repressed, what they've lost, and the consequences of trying to push beyond human limits. The gravity drive itself is more than a tool, it's a metaphor for humanity's hubris, the arrogance of believing we can surpass natural or moral boundaries. The Event Horizon doesn't just physically transport the crew, it exposes the parts of themselves they'd rather ignore. Even when the chaos reaches its peak, with bodies flung into space and hallucinations becoming violent reality, the film is still grounded in that tension between technical skill and human fragility, between the ordinary and the unimaginable. By the end, the story sharpens that theme with Miller's sacrifice. The transformed, corrupted Weir represents what unchecked ambition and grief can become, but Miller's line about saving the crew paired with his final act gives a weight that feels like it could have been even more resonant if expanded in the original cut. The theatrical version leaves some of that depth implied, but even so, that's enough to show the stakes. Humanity versus what it can't grasp, mortality versus survival, and the consequences of curiosity untethered from caution. The survivors drifting in stasis waiting for rescue, feel both relieved and haunted, a reflection of the movie itself. Event Horizon isn't just about a ship lost in space, it's about the limitations of human experience and the cost of pride and the shadows we carry inside of us. And honestly, even stripped down, it's a story that sticks, one that makes you feel the weight of both the cosmos and your own fragile place within it. So yeah, Event Horizon is not perfect, and it's definitely not some untouchable masterpiece, but for what it is, it's really a solid ride. Even the cut version, without all the insane gore and extra flashbacks, still manages to be creepy, tense, and visually striking. The way it messes with the characters' minds, turning something as familiar as a routine mission in space into this nightmarish, almost spiritual trial, really sticks with you. I love that it's not just the jump scares, it's guilt, ambition, grief, and humanity's tendency to push too far all wrapped up in a starship. And honestly, when you think about it, the practical effects, the design of the ship, and even the way the gravity drive is portrayed make it feel alive in this really unsettling way. It's one of those films where you finish watching and can't stop thinking about it, and that's why it's still worth checking out if you're into sci-fi, horror, or just movies that mess with your head a little. With all that being said, I'm curious what you guys have to say. What do you guys think about Event Horizon in 2025? Do you think it holds up, or would you have liked to see that lost cut? Thanks for making it until the end of the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Here at Inner Spiral, we cover the games, shows, and movies we all love, so be sure to join us, and I'll see you next time in the Spiral.